All right, guys, here's another batch of photos. I hope you enjoy. Look at this guy. Look at the shoulders. Look at the neck. Look at the belly. Look at the short legs. Looks like this deer has short legs, doesn't it? Because his body's so big. Look how deep his skull is from below his antler base to his bottom jawline. Look how wide he is between the ears. Now look at those long, sweeping main beams. Got great brow tines. Got some funky stuff going on, and both G2s look like they're almost common base. I can't really tell if they are or not. Fantastic threes. But then he has all that room out front of each G3 to his main beam. Looks like it's, to the tip, looks like it's 9-10 inches long. So this is an old deer, probably on the decline. He's throwing some non-typical stuff. This is a great deer. I would harvest this deer this year. I know this deer. I photographed this deer for the last 4 years in a row. I know this deer to be a minimum of 10 years old, low fence, free range, Maverick County. He lives about 100 yards off the highway. Nobody ever wants to hunt next to the highway and watch all the oil field trucks run up and down the road, but this old buck doesn't mind. Now what you can't see from the angle, this picture very well, but if you look right in front of his eyeball, you'll see that big hole, that indention. Now look at his nose. You'll know it's indented, it's turned a little bit. This deer has a broken nose. His entire nose, some point in his life, was broke. I don't know if a doe hit him or maybe another buck. I don't know if he hit a car on the highway. I don't know. But I know this buck is 10 plus years old. So let's look at his body. Look at the neck. Look at the chest. Look at the short legs. Do you see the swollen knees? Look at his belly. This is a monster body deer. Now look at his antlers. This deer was a 10-point deer. Probably the best I ever saw him was about a 155. Look at the mass. Of course, he's in velvet still, but look at the mass. This deer's got 6-inch bases. His main beams are literally melting. Anytime you see a deer where antlers are, look like they've melted like candle wax, short, stubby tines, that deer is just trying to survive. This deer probably doesn't have many teeth in his head. Should we have a bad winter, he may not make it. But a broken nose, he's at least 10 years old. Do this buck a favor and get you some sausage. Wow, look at this deer. You don't see many typical deer this pretty, this symmetrical. His gross and his net are going to be identical or near identical. This is a nice deer. Photograph's a little fuzzy, but hey, this is a fantastic Zavala County buck. Open range, low fence, supplemental feeding program. But look at his neck. See his shoulder blades sticking up. Doesn't have much of a deep chest. His knees aren't that big. I'm not sure this deer is fully mature. His nose looks, semi-pointed, semi-flat, but his skull doesn't look very wide. His skull doesn't look very deep. So this is another one of those deer before I pass judgment. I'd really like to see him from the ground, whether video or trail camera. But if you're looking for a net Boone and Crockett deer, here he is. But from this photograph, I can't tell you he's mature or not. But this is what dreams are made of right here. Look at this deer. Can't see his body very well, but I can see a giant round neck. I can see a deep chest. I can see his back is just rolling in fat. You see how that skin looks loose right in front of the top of his shoulders, lower part of his neck? He's an old deer. You notice that his ears look small in relation to his head. I can see that his nose is blunt and rounded off. I see that his skull's real wide. I can also see he has great mass. Now the coloration's a little tricky here because you can tell he's just been rubbing out of velvet, so it's, the antler color's a little light on the H1, H2, but it gets really dark out there toward the end. I think this deer is a post-mature deer. I think this deer is on the decline. I think this deer had seen better days. But if you're looking for a 158-inch trophy buck with short brow tines that's seen better days, this deer's for you. Man, it's hard getting two mature bucks in one photograph. Normally they're not running together, and then when they do sense danger, they don't stay together. They scatter like quail. It's every man for himself. Let's talk about this deer up front. Clearly not a completely mature deer. He's got a thin neck. See his shoulder blades sticking up. So he's not that wide across the back. You know, he's just marginally healthy. He's not a fully mature buck. Peanut colored antlers, 3.5 inch, maybe 4 inch on the mass. What I see is 8 points. They're not that long. Main beams are kind of short. I would shoot that deer in the front as, say, a 4-year-old. He's not going to score about 122, but he's just not ever going to measure up. Now let's look at this beast in the back. Look how wide his neck is. Look how wide his shoulders, his chest, his rump, his gray hair on his tail. This is an old, old man. Look how wide he is between the antler base. This is a big mature buck. Now go look up top. He's got 6 points on the right and 4 on the left. He's got fantastic brow tines. I'd probably look back on my trail cameras or look at last year's survey photos. I'd try to identify this deer. He should be easy to identify. And if he really went backwards last year, if he was a 6x6 or 6x5 and he's down to a 6x4, I would definitely take this deer. If I couldn't find him, I'd probably still take him. Because a 6x4, you know, his foreside's, you know, much weaker than that right side. That right side's outstanding, but if I saw this deer go backwards, and knowing that we had such a good year this year, I would take that deer as a mature trophy buck. But take the first one, research the second one. Here's another 2 bucks, and this was even cool. The deer in the front, hard antler. Deer in the back, velvet. And y'all know that, you know, they rub out in just a matter of a day or two, sometimes a couple hours. So it's really unique to catch 2 deer running together, one hard antler, completely hard antler, the other one completely velvet. Okay, front buck, thick neck, loose skin, fats rolling, deep chest, belly, short legs. I see at least 10 typical points. This deer is fully mature. He's got great brow tines. This is a trophy buck, high 160s, 168, something like that. Great deer. Get a better look from the ground, I'd probably shoot this deer, or, you know, make him available for harvest. Great, great deer. Look at this deer in the back. First thing I see is a thin neck. I can't really see much about his body, but I can see his backbone sticking up. He's not flat back. See how big his ears are in relation to his skull. I don't think this deer is mature. However, I see short brow tines. I see 3 points on the right and 4 on the left. I know that this deer is old enough to know better. I know he's at least a 3-year-old and maybe a 4-year-old, so I'm definitely going to kill him immediately. If these 2 deer walk out together tomorrow, if I'm hunting this ranch, this is Maverick County, by the way. If I'm hunting this ranch and these 2 deer walk out, I would definitely not shoot that front buck first. I would shoot this 4-year-old younger deer in the back, because that big deer in the front's got better genetics, and if I don't kill him this year, hey, and that's okay. He's breeding, but it's imperative that I shoot this deer in the back. You don't need a big 7-pointer at 3 or 4 years old. So do the herd, do yourself, do your buddies a good management decision, and shoot one time. Shoot that deer in the back. Golly, I'm on a roll here. Here's another 2 bucks. These deer are hard antler. These deer are Webb County deer, so they're big body, naturally big body. Let's talk about that deer in the front. I see long main beams. I see 10 points. Can't see his body very well, other than I see a big belly. I see muscles. I see a chest. So immediately I see light colored antlers, and I don't see a lot of mass. So I'm not sure this deer is fully mature, but I see enough to know that I'm not going to shoot him. He's a good quality buck. Let's look at this deer in the bottom. Now I do see a big chest, a belly, a wide back. I see a deep skull. This is a big deer. This is a mature deer, and I only see 8 points. I'm going to shoot the deer in the back, and I'm not going to shoot the deer in the front. I love it when you get this velvet hard antler thing going on at the same time. This deer is running so fast, you can see the velvet flowing behind him like a cape. I was laughing when I was taking this picture because I knew they were going to be good pictures. This deer is in Kimball County in western Edwards Plateau. You see the white rocks. This deer, you know, he's not mature. I don't know if he's a 3-year-old or 4-year-old. Those deer in the hill country are a little bit harder to age in South Texas, in my opinion. But here's what I see. I see a thin neck. I see thin shoulders. Not much of a belly. I see a fairly pointed face. But his skull's not very deep. And his ears sure look big to me. What bothers me is the short main beams. He's got 5x5, maybe a 5x4. He's got real short brow tines, real short main beams for a buck like this. So, you know, I'm in, you know, Kimball County. He's 9 points. If he's a 3-year-old, I'm probably going to leave him. But if my trail cameras or my daylight observation tells me that's a 4-year-old, I'm probably going to shoot this deer in Kimball County because of his small frame. You know, you've seen some really big frames from South Texas. This is what's called a small frame deer in the hill country. And even if he had 10 points, he wouldn't score much because everything's thin, light, and compact. So this deer, I'm going to hold off on him right now. I think he's a 3-year-old, but I'm not positive. I need to do my due diligence before I pass judgment on this little guy. But I just thought it was kind of a neat photograph. How these deer run through the rocks like they do, I have no idea. This is one of them called, we call this Carnegie Sada, or a no-brainer. And then sometimes with my helicopter pilots, we call them a pilot buck. Just giving them a hard time, you know, because they might get to be able to shoot this deer for free. This deer has got a long pointed nose, thin neck, thin shoulders. You know, he's kind of bony. This deer's in the hill country. I can't remember if he's Mason or Menard County. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm shooting this deer the first chance I see. Even if he's a 3-year-old, I see 6 points. He's got great brow tines, but that's all he has. He almost has no spread. Probably doesn't have a 10-inch spread maximum. But his main beams are tilted back. He's a real high, narrow rack. But the deer's never going to score anything. This deer should not reach maturity because he's eating, he's breeding. It's kind of neat seeing some of that bloody velvet trail behind him, but it doesn't matter. I'm shooting this deer, and I think he's 3 years old, and I would encourage you to do the same thing. All right, stay tuned for more deer pictures. This is fun. Hang tight. We will be back.